Okay, so in my journey to find amazing solo builds, I had to take a look at one of my favorite core solo classes in the Ranger. I wanted to take a unique look at this build and focus on something that would be engaging gameplay, but also have the damage and sustain we need to do well. This build's got bleeding, it's got traps, it's got poison, it's got pets. Let me introduce you to the core condition overload Ranger. First, let's talk about the build outline. For our weapon choice, we run short bow paired with axe dagger. The short bow is going to be our primary focus here, with the emphasis of stacking tons and tons of bleeding. Because our short bow has stronger effects when attacking either from the side or from behind, you can essentially have your short bow's improved effects up all the time. This is because, of course, we have our pet. The major benefit is the quick shot ability that is paired with our trait line ability, light on your feet, which after dodging or utilizing quick shot improves the effects of your conditions as well as your overall damage for a time, essentially making this ability a DPS cooldown. Your axe and dagger are meant to stack some more bleeding and a little bit of poison, whilst also keeping the ranger at, well, range. Inherently, these weapon combinations also have a number of stuns, slows, chills, and even dazes, so it can make handling break bars a breeze. The skill choices here focus heavily on the survival skills, with a trap thrown in here and there. The main build includes the use of Spike Trap and Viper's Nest to enhance the condition stacking on enemies, whilst the alternative to this build is to swap out Viper's Nest for Sharpening Stone. This is because our trait lines include a lot of bleeding improvements as well as giving us a bunch of benefits when utilizing the survival skills. I recommend keeping at least one stun break for this build as either Quickening Zephyr or Lightning Reflexes, just in case you get into a sticky situation. The trait lines of this build are Nature Magic, Wilderness Survival, and Skirmishing. In the Skirmishing trait line, we look for all the bleeding improvements that we can. So on crits, passive damage increase, and of course our capstone ability, Light on Your Feet. In the Wilderness Survival trait line, we look to improve the overall health of our pet, improve condition damage, as well as improving survival skills. Now, each time that we utilize a survival skill, thanks to our Grandmaster trait, Wilderness Knowledge, we grant ourselves Fury as well as removing 2 conditions. Lastly, this line grants you and your pet protection when you dodge roll, so essentially you can keep this up near full time by dodge rolling even if you aren't the main target. That's because when you apply protection to either yourself or your pet, both affected parties have passive health regeneration, as well as the damage reduction coming from protection. Lastly, Nature Magic is more defensive oriented, allowing you to share any boons you gain with your pet and giving you an increased concentration as well as protection when you are struck. Also, guess what? Now your dodge roll also removes conditions. Seriously, this build has some crazy good sustain. Okay, so for gear here, I ran this setup, and this has an emphasis on utilizing the Viper stat line, as we want to have critical strike chance, as well as improving our condition damage. This is because our critical hits can cause bleeding, and our bleeding is then further enhanced. For rune choice, I suggest running Rune of the Crate, as it stacks a number of conditions when utilizing your elite skill, but also applies a ton of bleeding improvements. Your sigils here are the standard fare in Bursting and Sigil of Earth, well, for more bleeding and condition damage improvement. Your pet choice here is a bit more personal, but I ran the Lashtail Devourer paired with the Juvenile Articotas. Now, I could be saying that wrong. Just for the overall tankiness and the bleeding capabilities, but at the end of the day, you can run whatever you want here. If you've made it this far, don't forget to like and subscribe for a bloody good time. Get it? Because all the bleed. Anyway, the build playstyle is to constantly skirt around your kill target, utilizing your various ranged abilities to whittle down targets with tons of bleeding and some poison. Now, given that you have a lot of crowd control built in, you can essentially work down break bars as well while you're attacking in your normal rotation. Remember, with the short bow, working in quick shot to get the light on your feet buff, then layering some more conditions from like poison volley or crossfire will greatly improve the amount of damage that you deal. Given that you utilize traps and then the entangle ability in your elite skill, you are going to have to get close. So switch to your axe dagger combo while still throwing axes and your other abilities as you move in closer. Making sure to use Stalker Strike or Dagger 4 after the target has been movement impaired. That is because Stalker Strike deals more poison damage to movement impaired foes. Once you are close to the target, lay down your traps and utilize your Entangle Elite skill to stack tons of bleeding and grant yourself fury. As you are stepping away, make sure to still use Crippling Talon as well as your other Axe Dagger combo abilities, because you want to inflict as many conditions as you can before switching back into the short bow. While fighting, you may not necessarily always be the target, but don't forget to dodge roll even if you aren't, because this grants protection to you and your pet. And then remember, protection also heals, so keeping it up as often as you can will keep your pet nice and healthy. Sometimes you will need to swap pets, so be prepared to kite a little, especially in these situations, as the target may come charging at you, but overall I didn't run into too many issues with this. Lastly, don't forget to use your pet abilities on cooldown, get some more bleeding in. Okay, so some of the limitations of this build is that gear can be, of course, quite expensive. If you are purchasing these from the trading post, each of the exotic Viper gear pieces is about 10 gold each, which may not necessarily be feasible for many players. Second, pet management may be a bit annoying, as this build does weapon swap and pet swap frequently, and if you don't watch your pet and they go down, you could be put into a bad spot. Lastly, dodge rolling when you don't necessarily need to for the protection uptime for you and your pet may put you into a bad spot depending on the fight, because you don't have endurance to dodge roll when you really need to. Seriously, this build can handle just about everything Tyria can throw at it, and what's even better is that it's specifically made for those fantastic core players who just want an effective condition build. If you want to see my unkillable core warrior build, then check out this video here. Stay caffeinated, folks.